versus ISB. A question that is asked every year, but perspectives of how you answer this question change year on year. How would you evaluate IIM versus ISB for your MBA applications for the 2025 intake? These are some perspectives that we have brought together for the discussion today. At GOALisB, along with ISB and MBA admissions consulting, we also engage in a lot of conversation with the applicants year on year. And these conversations help us to conduct a research about the MBA admissions landscape and how it is changing. And this landscape, no doubt, is changing drastically for the 2025 intake. We asked the applicants what motivates you to pursue an MBA. The responses, though not very surprising, were pretty skewed towards professional and skill enhancement. 89% of the respondents mentioned that they sought professional development and skill enhancement. 67% of the applicants sought enhancing the job prospects and earning potential. 60% of the applicants were keen on gaining exposure to diverse perspectives and cultures, wanted to expand their professional network, and 52% of the applicants were planning to change their career and they were looking for alternative career opportunities. This brings us to the next question. How did you choose an MBA in India? When we asked the respondents, their main criteria of choosing an MBA in India was the ranking. 68% of them voted that they chose an MBA program in India based on the ranking of the program. The next criteria, which was important for them, was the focus of the program on the Indian business landscape. 56% of the respondents, they voted for this particular criteria. The strength of the alumni network was also a very important criteria for them. Along with the job prospects after graduation, this brings us to the placement reports. While we would have thought that cost effectiveness is on the top of their mind, it scored only 36% in terms of the criteria of how they chose a one-year MP in India. All of these perspectives bring to light the questions which are important for MBA applicants. It's not only ranking, it's not only cost, it's usually a mix of different factors. Now let's see how ISB and IIM they fare with respect to these criteria and how you as an applicant can evaluate an IIM versus ISB for your own MBA application dreams. So the first comparison that we made was an analysis of the 10 years placement report for IIM versus ISB. Now, if you look at the placement reports and how these are structured at ISB versus how an IMA PGPX program structures it, there is quite some difference in terms of how the data is presented. So the comparison of placement reports is actually not very uniform yet in India with respect to especially ISB versus IIM. ISB placement reports mention the CTC. The IMA placement reports mention the salary and the maximum earning potential. Although, having said that, we have compared all of these over here, and you can very well see that there is an upward trend parallelly amongst both these programs in the mean CTC and the mean salary for the ISB versus IMA PGPX. Now, coming to another aspect of the placement reports, which is the analysis of the 10 years of the median CTC versus the median salary at ISB versus IMA. We've taken up IMA as the sample for this comparison because this has a substantially large batch size. Again, if you look at this report, there is an upward trend. A marginal increase in ISB or a marginal increase in IIM would really probably not matter to you in the long term. The point to take home is that when you're comparing IIM versus ISB, you are on an upward trend in terms of the salary or the placement prospects that you have post the MBA completion. We looked at the mean salaries and the median salaries for the complete program. We also how different sectors fared in the placement reports at IIM versus ISB. So when we compared the consulting sector, the IT or the technology sector, the BFSI, automotive, FMCG, and retail, there is a difference in the representation of these sectors in the placement reports for the 2023 placement cycle. It brings home the same point that the criteria of choosing an I versus ISP for an applicant can be actually based on their personal criteria. Mark it down, what sector am I coming from, what sector do you want to go to, compare these programs as to where do you get those opportunities which fit your aspirations. Another major difference of an IIM versus ISB is in terms of the class profile. If you look at the class profiles in terms of the average age in class, the IMA PGPX or the different IIM programs, the 1 year MBA programs in India, which are offered by IIMs, they will have a higher average age in class, that is roughly around 30 to 32 years. At ISB, the average age representation in class is around 26 to 27 years. There is not a lot of difference in that, but again, it's a personal perception and a personal choice that you have to make. There is actually quite some difference in the average work experience in the class. While at ISB, the average work experience might be from years in the class. At the IIM 1 year MBA programs, the average work experience would be around anywhere between 7 to 8 years of experience. This changes the whole landscape of the class and the whole class profile as such in terms of the average work experience. There is a drastic difference in the IIM versus ISB average work experience representation in the class. The class size is also one criteria which is very important when you're comparing. Again, if it is something that you are interested in, evaluating as an important criteria. The ISB class is anywhere from 800 plus, and an IIM class, the IMBC, the class size is around 75 to 85, while at IIM Ahmedabad, the class size is around 158 this time. So the difference also comes in terms of the class size. So the learning environment will be different at an IIM 1 year MBA and the ISB 1 year MBA. This can help you choose the right program if this is an important criteria for you. The cost of the programs is slightly different. At ISB, the cost is definitely higher at ISB than the IIM MBA programs. Now coming to the rankings. This also presents a very confusing picture. If you look at the FTA MBA rankings, ISB scores much higher than the IIMs. If you look at the QS MBA rankings, ISB scores lesser than the IIMs. The IIMs do rank higher than ISB in the QS MBA rankings for 2024. So when you are choosing a program on the basis of rankings, which was an important criteria for a lot of applicants, you also need to read between the lines, go into the rankings and see as to what particular criteria is important for you, and whether you're looking at the overall ranking, are you more convinced with the system of the FTMBA ranking, or do you think the QSMBA ranking is more representative of what your aspirations are or your expectations are from the program? Then in that case, you can choose your program accordingly. When we're looking at the rankings, you cannot really say that an ISB is better than an IM or an IM is better than an ISB. One ranks higher, the other ranks higher. There's hardly a lot of difference when you're looking at an ISB versus an IM in this manner. Finally, how do you compare? These are a few suggestions that we have. Check what is the class learning experience that you feel will be good for you. If you have a criteria for the average age which is represented in the class, that would also be something very important for you to choose an IM versus an ISB. The work experience representation in class will also be important. The class size can be important when you're choosing an IM versus ISB. These are things which are drastically different across these programs. Then the second is the availability of scholarships and the cost of the programs. Over the last year, we have seen that all of these programs have been very aggressive. Our admits have gotten good scholarships at IIMs as well as at ISB. So we would really not compare in terms of the scholarships because there is no structured information. People have gotten good results at both these type of programs. However, the cost of the program is definitely different. ISB is higher than the IIMs. And this is one difference. If it is important for you, then you can compare the programs on the basis of the cost factor. The scholarships are decided by the school at the end of the cycle. Once they have given you the admits, that is when they reach out to you to fill the scholarship forms at IIM Bangalore. At IIMA, once you have gotten to the program, you will be selected for certain scholarships, and the award of the scholarships also is very different. At ISB, there is a merit-based scholarship which will be awarded by the school. There is no separate application process for the same. We have had admits with getting from 50% to 100% tuition waiver at ISB on the merit-based waiver. And in terms of the need-based waiver, that is some application that you can put up from the application form itself. But again, there is no such criteria where we see that, okay, this profile is the guarantee to get a scholarship or this is not. So a comparison of the schools on the basis of this will probably not be possible. Cost is something that is pretty determined, and we already know that. So this is one comparison. The third criteria that you can also look at is the international exposure. At ISB, the international exchange is one way that you get an international exposure, which is something that you have to bid for, which is something that you have to choose as a part of your electives. At IIMs, the one-year MBA programs, they have a mandatory international immersion. So the international experience at ISB will be an international exchange. That means you apply, you go to that particular school for the terms that you have chosen to. It is usually in the seventh and the eighth term. Now there is a structural change in the ISB curriculum as well. There is no eighth term. So the international exchange will be 1 or 2 terms at the end of the program, likely, but you are going alone on that international exchange. At IIM, the international immersion is structured in a way that a group of the class goes to a certain location and the program is structured for them for the international immersion. So this is a slightly different aspect of both of these programs. If you think that this is something that really draws you to the program, then you can research it better, talk to the alumni, talk to the school and see, what works for you as a criteria. Our tips for the applicants who are applying for the MBA admissions in 2025, especially for the ISB or IM, the process is extremely competitive. Three main reasons for that. One, limited number of seats. Second, the strong ROI of the programs with respect to what the international programs have to offer. And the pool is very, very competitive. So these three reasons make it a very competitive process. So select your schools objectively, keep your options open, and apply to at least 3 or 5 programs when you are planning to invest your energy, invest your time in writing the GMAT. If you're planning to apply to IIM A, B, and C and ISB, then also make sure that your GMAT or your GRE score is only in center based. IIM Calcutta does not accept the GRE score. If you're planning to apply to the maximum number of programs, then probably the GMAT is a more widely accepted score. So choose your test accordingly, but definitely do write only the in center test. This will make you eligible for all of these programs. Since the process is very, very competitive, coming to the 2025 application cycle, we expect it to be even more competitive. Select a good range of schools to apply to, whether it is Indian or international programs, have a mix of programs. And you can get in touch with us in case you want any discussion on the profile or the kind of schools that you can apply to. We'll be happy to help. You can schedule a call with us or WhatsApp us for further details on this process.